Okay, Sean. So this is question number 3 for the homework on 7-5. So they give you a system of equations and they're asking you to use the substitution method to solve that system. So the substitution method, the first step in the substitution method is we have to get one of these variables all by itself. So either x equals or y equals. We're trying to get one of those equations into that form of that. So if I write this out, I make negative x plus y equals -1. And then I've got 4x minus 3y is equal to 2. So if I want to get one of those variables all by itself, it doesn't matter which one I choose, and it doesn't matter which equation I use. I just want to do whatever's easiest. Okay, so if I look at these equations, I can see here if I just add x to both sides on this top equation, I'll get y all by itself. And that seems like a pretty easy thing to do. So that's the way I'm going to do it. I could also solve for x. I could get x all by itself. But that would take a couple of more steps. I'd have to get the y on the other side, and then I'd have to get rid of this negative here. So that's an extra step. So I don't, if I can avoid doing that extra step, I will. And then if I use the second equation, you see that that's even more complicated because I have to get x by itself. I'd have to add 3y to both sides and then divide everything by 4. And I'd end up with some fractions there, and I'd rather not do that. And the same thing with y. To get y by itself, I'd end up with some fractions. I'd have to divide by -3. So I'm gonna take this first equation here, and I'm just gonna rewrite it so that the y is all by itself. So I'm gonna add x to both sides. So I'm just gonna add x here, and I'm gonna add x here. And so that first equation now becomes y is equal to x minus 1. All right, so I've got that y all by itself, which is what I want. Now I'm going to take that y and I'm going to use it. I'm going to use this second equation. I'm going to plug it into the first equation. So I'm going to take that y, I'm going to take this y as x minus 1, and I'm going to replace this y in the first equation with x minus 1. Okay, and that's the substitution process. That's generally what we're trying to do. We're just trying to take one equation and plug it into the second equation. So if I rewrite this second equation now, I get 4x minus 3 times, and then instead of writing y, I'm going to write what y equals. Y equals x minus 1. Okay, and that's going to equal 2. So if I just rewrite this second equation here, and I replace the y in there with x minus 1 from the first equation, then I can get rid of that. And now you see I have this second equation only has an x in it. And because it just has an x in it, then I can go ahead and solve for x. So I'm just going to solve this just like I normally would. So first thing, I'm going to distribute this -3 to both of those. So here I would have 4x minus 3x. -3 times -1 is +3 is equal to 2. I'm going to combine my like terms here and here, so that's just going to give me x plus 3 is equal to 2. And if I subtract 3 from both sides, then I get x is equal to -1. All right, so there's half of my answer. All right, so there's half of my answer. I got the x coordinate. I need to find out the y coordinate. Now, I can go back and take this -1 and plug it in, into either any of these equations up here. But since this one's already solved for y, I'm going to go ahead and just plug it right back in up there. So I'm going to take this and I'm just going to plug it into this one right here. I'm just going to replace x with -1. So here, if I go into the second equation, now I'm going to come down here, right? This is going to go up into this equation, and then it's going to come down here. So I got y is equal to x minus 1. Instead of x, I'm going to replace it with -1. So I get -1 plus -1, and so I get y is -2. Okay, so that would be my answer. My answer there would be -1, -2. So that's the coordinate that these two lines cross at. So if I were to graph these two lines up, they would cross at this point, -1, negative 2. Now, how do I know I'm right? Oh, well, I can go and check that. Okay, so if I go and check that, this says that if I have negative 1 plus y, so if I'm going to go up here and check, I'm just going to take negative 1 and plug it in here. So I have negative 1 plus y, which is negative 2. And that should equal negative 1. This is going to be 1 minus 2 is equal to 1, and that's true. All right, and so I'll check it in the second equation just to make sure that that works on the second equation too. So for the second equation, I put 4 times negative 1 minus 3 times negative 2. That should be equal to 2. And so here this would give me negative 4. Negative 3 times negative 2 would be positive 6. And so negative 4 plus 6 equals 2. So that works. So I can check to see that those 2 points are actually on each one of those lines, and they have that point in common. So there's my solution. Okay, so my x here is going to be negative 1, and my y value is going to be negative 2. All right, I hope that helps. Let me know if you have any other questions.